can't see each other often, we're still able to encourage each other in the spaces that we find ourselves. The book of 1 Samuel, chapter 30, records the story of how David and his men were returning to Ziklag and how they found it in such a waste. The Amalekites have plundered it, burnt it down, taken the women captive, including David's wives, and they were also distraught and they wept. And in the midst of adversity, David inquires of the Lord, who encourages him to pursue the Amalekites and tells him that they would be victorious and that they would recover all that they'd lost. And on the way, they stopped to help this Egyptian man who'd collapsed, possibly because he hadn't eaten in a while, maybe he was sick, and they nursed him back to life. And they realized that actually this guy was one of the people that plundered their land. And in turn, this Egyptian man helps lead them to the Amalekites, where they recover not only what they'd lost, but even more. And it's so encouraging that David becomes such a good steward thereof. He shares this plunder with the men that hadn't gone up to find the Amalekites, as well as people in surrounding cities where he commonly went. I was so encouraged by this passage as I learned a few lessons, and one of them is that tribulations are in no way unique to our generation. And this is helpful because this means that we have references in the Bible to help us deal with difficult situations. We currently find ourselves in a space where, like David's men, we've possibly lost some close friends, some family members, some possessions, possibly our places to stay during COVID, but we're reminded to inquire of the Lord in our time of adversity. We remember that Jesus is such a present help in a time of need, and therefore we should cast our cares on him. Hebrews 10 verse 23 speaks of how we should hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, because God can be trusted to keep his promises. David knew that he could depend on God's provision and direction. The promises in God's word still apply today for us, and because he who began a good work in us will see it to completion. And secondly, in their distress and pursuit of all they'd lost, they still had a heart, a passion, time to serve others. And it's profound that it's in them helping others that they themselves are in turn helped, because God truly causes all things to work for good for those who love him. In the end, they not only get what they lost, but even more. And this reminds us that Jesus is the restorer of all things. The Bible records how the Lord has restored broken walls, people's lives, people's health, people's finances, people's families, what the cankerworms have eaten. And I believe that he's still the same God today, who's able to restore all that we have lost. My biggest takeaways from this story today are that, intimacy with Jesus is so important when we find ourselves in times of disappointment or adversity. So let's learn to turn to him in our time of need, because only he knows tomorrow and only he can order our steps. And friends, solitude with Jesus is necessary for that intimacy, so he can impart and direct us and order our steps. And even as he blesses us and restores that which we've lost, let's remember to be good stewards thereof. Let's encourage ourselves in the Lord, remind ourselves of his promises, remember to love others and serve others along the way. Lastly, I know we've possibly all lost so much, but I believe that a time of restoration is truly coming, and that's my encouragement for you today. Like I did for David and his men, it's always darkest before dawn, and no matter how dark it is, the sun is sure to rise, and I believe that the sun will rise in our situation with healing in his wings. And even as God restores, let's learn to appreciate and share these blessings and be generous and love others along the way. Sometimes difficult times help us appreciate all the more what we've been blessed with. I pray that you've been blessed and have a blessed day. Love you all.